Do you have an escape plan from planet Earth? No? So is sustainability really a choice? Now, it isn't just about reduction and costs. It can also benefit your triple bottom line. In fact, today we get an intro into sustainability and how it can bring about abundance and growth. So let's go. Welcome everyone to Modern Corporate Leader. We hear sustainability mentioned all the time, but what does it mean to you? Often it seems to be linked to just the environment and recycling, but I want to know more about sustainability and frameworks to apply it. So in looking at who was helping major international corporates, such as Nike, IKEA, Covestro, Interface Floor, and Volvo navigate and incorporate sustainability, I reached out to Thrive Together Limited. Thrive Together is a think tank and innovation consultancy based in Shanghai. A team of strategists, engineers, environmentalists, social scientists, and designers united to help transform organizations into exponentially restorative paradigm shifters. So today we're fortunate to be talking with the Executive Director of Natural Step China and Thrive Together Limited, Lin Zhang. Welcome.
Thank you, Trent.
So tell us, Lin, what is sustainability and why should companies care and work on it?
Okay, that's a common question usually I get. What is sustainability? By reading the word of it, it's your ability, or basically humans' ability, to sustain ourselves on this planet, or if we have a mean on other planet too. And why should company care about it? I would say it's linked to your own benefit, and it's linked to your bottom line, and it's linked to your risk, and it's linked to your resilience. And especially at time like this, you should care about it even more.
So tell me for a minute, how did you come to sustainability and what do you do?
That's a very interesting question. I was an engineer in training. So basically, I had my master degree in Sweden about electronic science. So I was an ASIC designer, chip designer in telecom industry for more than 10 years. So I was first line engineers designing modem chip inside 4G. However, after so many years doing it, then that made me realize that technology isn't the only key, because both of my companies that I worked in Sweden, tech-wise, we're number one in the world, but we still have problems. And financially, customer-wise, business-wise, product definition-wise, we had problems, honestly, which triggered me to believe that there is some other keys too, and which pushed push the button to be back to school, this time B school again. Personally, I wanted to explore the other side of the mountain, so to say. And then this time I went to B school and had another master, and it really happened to be sustainable business leadership.
In looking at the business case for companies, what are some of the components or pillars or principles of sustainability that you address?
So the principles of our, we can say the Nattrass step sustainable principles are still the only set of principles that scientifically proved in the world. And that's the base of all the work what we do. So I can shortly explain it, or in a more user-friendly way. So we have four. And the first principles is about basically the matters that you subtract from the Earth's crust. So in the principles, it says, in a sustainable society, whatever you do, you need to make sure that you do not systematically increase the concentration level of whatever you extracted from the Earth's crust in the nature. It doesn't mean that you cannot dig up stuff and use it as raw material, but it means after you use the raw material, you cannot just spread it out like this into the nature again, because then the concentration level will increase higher, which becomes toxic first, or basically the nature cannot digest it anymore. So that's number one, principles. And number two, in a sustainable society, whatever you do, you should not systematically increase the concentration level of man-made stuff. And the reason is also obvious, because it's man-made, it's compound that nature doesn't really recognize and have a hard time to break down. So if you systematically increase the concentration level, nature cannot really digest it. And that's why the capacity of cycling will be so much degraded. So that's number two. And number three principle is, in a sustainable society, whatever you do, you should not physically harm the natural recycle ability in a physical way, I meant. So basically what I meant is, you can fish, that's no problem, but you should not overfish. You can also extract underground water, but you should not overdoing it. Again, if you do this, it's physically harm the capacity of natural cycles, right? And then that is what brings problem. And number four is, actually, it sounds like the first three is all about environment, but number four is about human, which is actually as important as the first three. So the number four principle is, in a sustainable society, whatever you do, you should not be the power structure to be the barrier for other people to meet their basic needs. If you do, nobody is going to care about principle 1, 2, 3, right? Because after all, a sustainable society is, first, you need to make sure it's humans thrive and within nature's limit. We're not talking about that we need to only protect the animals and diversity on the planet but ignore human being. That's not what we're aiming for. So basically our definition is a way to scientifically explain how can you make sure the triple bottom line can be stabled. So those are the basic principles of our definition.
So that sort of setting up of the boundaries and managing that balance or harmony, and not just, you know, in the current time frame and for everybody, but future as well. Tell me, a lot of companies, when they're looking at sustainability and thinking about their initiatives, it tends to be quite reactionary, or they see it as being negative or detrimental to their bottom line. And you just mentioned triple bottom line. How does it help companies, or how do you see it help companies in their profit or their revenue or their customer base and their relationships, etc.? What are the other benefits that sustainability and incorporating it into the company brings to the company?
What we do is we apply those principles into the core business, and we can do it at least on 7 areas. First, the product itself, and then the process of your business, and then we call it PERS, or you can understand it as profitability, and then people itself, and then partnership. This includes both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, and also communication part. How do you actually communicate this out to your audience, and both internally and externally? So in terms of how do we deliver benefit, basically we apply those principles onto the core business and guide clients and customers and companies to come up with the new vision of what you need to be in the future when you fully aligned with those sustainability principles. And obviously we need to be aware that no one is fully aligned with it, and this is totally fine. But that is the to-be model, and that's the future vision you want to be, right? And that in there, it not only includes, oh, how my product should be, it also includes our business model, right? And if you look at the raw material side and logistic, how do you make sure that you do not increase the concentration level, right? You can actually make sure in different ways, but that's how do you apply it. That's to be. And forget about how do you do it now. There will be a way. You will be able to find a way how do you do it. But either way, that's where you want to be. And then we go back at current level to examine the, we call it baselining. That's where you are. And those are the gap. These are the gap in between that you want to close. And it's not, most of the time, it's not a one step. It's multiple steps. And we call it creative thinking and creative solution. However, there's no company have the manpower and the capacity to do whatever you want to do at once. And then you have to have some priority. So that is, we call it backcasting, or ABCD backcasting. How do you backcast from principles in a sustainable future? And to make sure in the future, your current problem is designed out. And then gradually you turn that direction to that future vision. That's how. So if you do this right, what you can do is, what you can get is at least 7, the benefit from 7 area. And all those benefits are traditional business benefits, right? You increase the revenue, and you basically reduce waste and reduce raw material input, and you basically you're more purpose driven, so your staff turnover is slowing down, etc., etc. And also you low down your risk also. I mean, imagine if you are a business owner and your product has some scarce element right now in it, right? And that will for sure make basically be sure that your raw material will increase later, the cost of your material. That's why early on when you designed next generation of product, you should actually have that in mind. How do I decouple myself from the scarce element or scarce raw material currently? And how do I, is there any abundance that I can use? What is abundance, right? And if there's abundance, how do I make sure that abundance will stay abundance? So those are all the benefit. I know it's a common knowledge or view that sustainability is the extra cost, but the truth is, if you do this right, sustainability is not a cost, it's actually the biggest opportunity ever in the history of innovation and also of profitability.
I love that. And I love it not just being something that's looking backwards or incremental. It can really be a game changer for the company as well, and the community that it's in, and the earth. With what I do with the coaching, consulting work, and advisory work, particularly around abundance and looking at innovation and disruption and emerging technologies, we look at those future scenarios and then backcast from that. And I know some of the management consultancies are just starting to talk about this sort of philosophy. I know you've been doing it for 30 years. Can you tell us about, backcasting from principles that you mentioned versus that sort of from where you are looking forwards and coming up with scenarios and forecasting?
It's in the recent 2 years, we have also noticed the trend. Basically, the forecast is the trending way, right? All the big four and all of them write forecast report. But in the recent 2 years, if you do a search work on the EY or Accenture, all of them start applying backcasting. They use different word. It can be future back, or people, different companies use different words, but what it is really the same. It's backcasting. It's basically to figure out what you want to be first, and then go back to where you are. And the difference between us is we have been doing this for 30 years. And finally, we see someone is joining the club finally. Personally, I do think if we want a more sustainable world for entire human species, we do need backcasting. And also what we do need is not only backcasting from scenario, which is the normal way. Instead, we need backcasting from principles. And then you may ask, what's the difference? And the difference is if you regard scenario, there will be different players in your scenario, and most of the time there will be your competitors, right, in the scenarios. However, you don't really know what your competitor is going to do in 5 years, or you kind of guess that. So in the scenario backcasting way, it's very hard to actually first figure out all the different players, where are they going to be and what do they going to do. And second is, if you backcast that way, the trajectory that you can get yourself out from the current system, which isn't sustainable, is almost impossible, right? We have to admit that what we really need is a system shift. We cannot just continue the way we do for entire human species. So in order to lift ourselves out and to see another scenario, then what it is you need to know is actually the principles to win. So it's like when you play chess, you know how are you going to win. It's checkmate, right? But you don't know what is your opponent is going to move, right? So it's the same. And then what we need to do as human species is, how are we going to win? What's the basic rules of winning sustainability? And you may actually be surprised to actually learn we know those principles. And those are the principles I just mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's great, because in my mind, if we work from where we are now and use that current mode of thinking to think about future scenarios and plan a path, we still don't know what we don't know. Whereas if we go to the future and look at those principles that we want to be abiding by, then we'll find steps along the way and the opportunities to get there and end up where we want to be, rather than some potential scenario that we think we want. That's
exactly.
great. I love it. So taking that to our current crisis around COVID-19 and addressing ramifications of it, both directly, but also the secondary and tertiary effects that we might see, globally and locally. What do you suggest companies should be thinking about regarding sustainability in this current period?
I wouldn't suggest that we think about something differently compared to before COVID-19. However, my suggestion would be, this is the call. And this is the call for action. You need to act fast. So I believe this will actually increase the speed, or push it rather than, because if we don't, COVID-19 is will be just a rehearsal for human being, because there will be worse coming yet. And most likely there will be climate refugees. And if we continue our current path, most likely there will be food shortage, right? So if we don't want that, or if we want to delay that a little bit, what we need to do is actually to stop thinking that sustainability is a side project of social responsibility of corporate, which only brings a bit marketing effect. Sure, it can do that. But if you don't engage that into your core business, if you don't change what you do and how you do it, most likely, you will not be able to reduce your negative impact, right? Yeah, sure, your negative impact is this much, and you do a little bit social responsibility part to have a positive impact of this much, it's not going to help us. So what I see, what we need to do is to stop thinking that anything sustainability related is a side track. It needs to be in the mainstream, and it can be. And I promise you, if you do put it in the mainstream, it's going to deliver business profit.
It needs to be embedded within the DNA and the culture of the company, but
Yes,
that also then will come out in the community and the following, and it'll become a snowball, won't it? I find,
exactly, exactly.
COVID-19 is not really in my mind a black swan. A
Mm,
pandemic has been predicted and known as possible, and it's just a matter of timing and when and what it looks like. And I think it's been great for us to realize how globally interconnected we are, both with our ability to communicate and to work together when we're facing a challenge like this, which we now need to exploit or leverage and not forget about if we do return back to the new normal. Um, but there'll be other challenges, as you say, and the fact that they might not be as acute in the timing as we know these problems are developing and we need to address them at some point. We go on day to day without addressing them.
mm.
You know, we need to address them because they will come to bear at some point. And the sooner people, communities, and companies can take that on board and address it, the better, I think, for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, wonderful.
totally agree.
What are some key takeaways if you've got a board or C-suite sitting in front of you or leadership? What would be some key takeaways that you'd pass on to them?
Think out of the box, and we're not going back. And there's no way to go back. And also, we have nowhere to escape. And everyone is here on the planet in this together. And I do not personally like the saying of saving the planet. Honestly, the planet doesn't need us. It's us saving ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Mother Earth has been here for a long time and changed many
Yeah,
forms. People may come and go, and other animals and species.
exactly.
Yeah, she'll be fine. It's just how we want to, whether we want to be here or not, and how we want to relate with nature.
Yeah.
Cool. Are
So
there?
if you want to change it and you don't know how to do it, then I'm here, happy to help you out.
Yeah, great. Are there any other books or references that you'd suggest to the audience?
Mm, yeah, we do have quite a few books published. Let's say I would say the entry level will be this one. If you could, I don't know if you could. It's basically the Nattrass step for business, and that's the book is quite old, but I do think it's still relevant. Uh, and then we have like something like this,
Great.
the Nattrass step for communities, and we have actually a lot more than this. And basically, in each of the sectors, we have something like the Nattrass step for universities, or something like that. I can mail you a list later, so you could actually tell the audience maybe.
Lynn, what are your thoughts to the UN SDGs?
Uh, Um, SDGs, okay. I think it's certainly one step in the right direction, in the right direction, and also it's a holistic goals or a set of holistic goals, and it's a good guidance. However, SDGs are the goals that UN could get all the country to sign on at that time. Is the minimum agreement that they could get at that time, which implies already that different phases or different phase in the development, we would have different goals or sustainable development goals. That to me is SDG should and will change. Instead, if you look at our principles, we talk about where is the full sustainability, right? So to me, if you are a company care about it, and already now you need to aim higher than the current SDGs already. That's to make sure that you are ahead of the game, right? So you do not only have a set of moving target to aim for, if you do want this to last longer. But if you want the exact relationship for our principles to SDGs, is what I can offer you is we have 21 business goals called Future Fit Benchmark. that are derived from our principles, which I can provide you the link to 17 SDGs. So there are links for sure. Um, yeah. So to me, good one step needs to go further, and I suggest you aim further as well.
So they're good goals and something to work towards and that were agreed at the time, but they're not the end game. It's certainly
No,
better to go beyond that and to tie back to those original principles you talked about.
exactly.
Cool. Great. So I think often for many people, sustainability means a reduction or a negative impact like that. What are your thoughts around abundance and its relation to sustainability?
That's a great point you have brought up, Trent. When you think about sustainability, yeah, most people were thinking reduce and yeah, minimum, but that really doesn't have to be the way or the only way you go. And it's like luxury or sustainability for luxury. It should not be reduce your choices. It actually should increase your choices. And as I just mentioned, what you need to be care of is the concentration level. It doesn't really limit your choice of where the abundance is. I would actually suggest whoever cares about sustainability to get yourself off from only thinking we should use as little as possible, which is fine. However, you should also think what is the abundance part that you can utilize. And the only difference is when you have the abundance, you need to make sure when you use abundance, you just don't make it scarce again.
Are there any examples that you could provide to help with how we relate to abundance?
For example, if your business model was selling a certain product, and so your revenue and profit coming from selling the product, what the true need for the users for using your product is not the ownership of your product. Let's say you sell car, right? That you basically fulfill a need of freedom that they want to move from A to B. So that is the true needs you satisfy, and that is the value that your product brings. So from this point of view, the need will be there. So abundance is the need. And the scarcity comes from the material side, for example. And then how do you still fulfill the need, but take off the ownership part, right? And you can actually provide a service of moving people from A to B, and which will enable you to dematerialize. However, you still fulfill people's need, right? So this is how do you switch from abundance, minimize thinking to abundance thinking.
Yeah, that change of ownership will have its impact in itself with not recycling as such, but multiple reuse or users rather than the traditional ownership. And then also
Exactly.
that impact from dematerialization, where we're not
Mm-hmm.
just talking about the physical good or some of the chains that normally occur, and it enables us to access more in a different way without having that typical impact that it has.
Exactly.
Love it. So thanks very much, Lynn, for your time today and sharing your thoughts and expertise. It's really appreciated.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And everybody, I'd really love you to consider what we've discussed today around sustainability and how you can bring it to what you do, because it not only impacts on your corporation and your team, but yourself and your community, and then at the end of the day, all of us. So the more we can all do and collaborate on it, the bigger the impact and the better for all of us. So if you've got any more queries around sustainability or the framework or tools we've talked about today, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lynn at t2l.co, or you'll find the links below as well. So thanks very much. Have a great day and go well. Bye.
Thanks, Trent. Bye.
Bye.